Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here with my friend and colleague Jim Gurley. And we had some conversations before we started to record this one, and what we ended up were two topics that we think are pretty closely related: um, events in life that change us forever, um, and the notion of personal accountability, personal responsibility. And so it's a pretty easy one to connect to our foundational flywheel of life. The self accountability obviously emanates from the middle of the wheel, from the self, from the ego, and it's one of our hyphenated self terms that is worthy of attention, I think. And Jim feels the same way in this day and age. And then the events that took place, I mean, somebody took a shot at our ex-president on Saturday. It's Wednesday now, and then last night or the night before, can't even remember, he picked his vice presidential candidate. And so those are big deals. And we talked a little bit about them. And I suppose, Jim, we begin this as a world view. And I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that we both lean a little bit to the right, me probably more so than Jim. If that's a surprise to you, then you've never listened to us before. But Jim, take the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah. So, first of all, Mark, thank you again for reminding us of this framework that we use every week. And again, I'll use your example. You hold your hand up, and in the center of your hand, you point to the center, and there's the self, and then there's these 5 areas of our life on a high level. Again, no particular order. Our profession, our career, something you've spent most of your life helping people with. Our health, mental health, and physical health. Our relationship with others. That's our mothers, our wives, our brothers, fathers, grandfathers, 2 different relationships. Our relationship with money, which has a lot to do with everything, particularly as a man. That's why it's called the Imperfect Men's Club, because these are our imperfections that we work on every day. And then, like you said, worldview. And wow, what an event on Saturday that will affect the world in ways we don't know yet. But it clearly was an event that will shape the future of our country and a lot of things. But yeah, the self part, we've in recent weeks or months, we've talked about the importance of self-awareness. And I still believe that's probably the most important one to start with. I think we've got 30 selves, right, in our library of different selves. But the self-awareness is the most important thing, because you're self-aware of what is going on in your life and the events possibly that you've had in the past and that will affect your future. But the word self-accountability is really, I think, almost like next level, because you're taking self-accountability for what's happened in your life, and then also the most important one, the future of your life and your happiness. Your happiness has to be 100% your that you have to be accountable for your happiness, or I think happiness is, we tried to change it, right? Your ability to have joy and fulfillment. Happiness is a word I think we try not to use that one if we can't. But there's a lot of things. But the events, there are events that happen in our lives. I can think of some. We'll come back to those. I like to do things in 5s, right? There's an event when I was 5, there's an event when I was 10, there's an event when I was 15, one when I was 20, and so on. But Saturday was an event. So what do we do with that? How's that going to affect, in this case, the president-elect Trump, right? How is he going to be affected? I don't want to make it all about him, but I think it's a great way to know this is going to shape the way he views the world.
Yeah, I mean, the man almost lost his life. That has to be life. That has to be life changing. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
And I think the and the look of him walking down the runway at the convention was a man that, in my eyes, I saw a man that was still confident, but his brashness
Yep.
had subsided. It was a
Yep.
much more quiet confidence. It was not the
Mhm.
arrogant Donald Trump. It was, hey,
Yeah.
this fucking guy almost got killed,
Yeah.
and
No, I
and
appreciate that description because that's what I saw in his eyes as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we don't know yet. We'll find out more as time
No,
goes on.
and Jim, the thing that there's so many things that I find frustrating about all the things that have taken place since then and during then and all that, but they do all wrap around the idea of self accountability and
Mhm.
the notion as well that if you're not going to be holding yourself accountable, then other people will have to hold you accountable.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I don't see anybody yet being held accountable for anything. And that astonishes me. I don't, no one on the Secret Service has been admonished or not in public. No
Yeah.
one's been suspended. No one's been fired. And I get the fact that, and this is a point we've made before for other events. It takes time and context to
Mhm.
get to the truth. And
Yeah.
when something bad like this happens, it's called an investigation, right? And
Yeah.
so that's ongoing, and I understand that, but it seems
Yeah.
to me like because I heard the head of the Secret Service on TV say the buck stops here. Well, she's still the head of the Secret Service, so I don't really understand what's going
She
on
said
there.
that recently.
Yeah, yeah, she said
Mhm.
it on camera like 2 days ago.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
surprised she said it. She was kind of reticent, but it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's so many places we can go with this one, but yeah, just let's flush out the politics side because again, it's a real thing and it's something that when I say flush it out, and we'll move on to other things about affect our lives. But I think there's no question that this administration, particularly, has not been self accountable about let's just say what they have put out uh, into the world as far as division. I think they've created a tremendous amount of division in the
Mm-hmm.
last 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I again, full disclosure, I despise them for that because some of it was just completely unnecessary. It was driven for political reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, again, you got to come in on this one because I don't want to say a bunch of stupid shit just because I'm
No, no,
emotional
no,
about
no,
that.
no, no, no.
But,
I think that what I see happening is the hypocrisy of the left is now being thrust back into their faces because there's only so many places to hide. And I've heard a lot of opinions on this, and I don't make brash statements about things, generally speaking, unless I've investigated them myself. And I understand that I'm limited in terms of what I have access to information wise. But I watch 4 or 5 special forces guys that are snipers talk about what happened as ridiculous. Yeah, I think that's probably a viable source of information. Not one, 4 or 5, right?
yeah,
Like same description over and over again.
yeah,
And and they,
yeah,
the prevailing position is there's one of two possibilities. The government was in on it in some capacity, or the Secret Service is massively dysfunctional and doesn't know what they're doing and needs to be revamped. It's one
yeah.
or the other, you
Yeah, I'd
know?
like to think of the latter because again, I think conspiracy theories could go, a little crazy. But I'm actually going beyond just the event on Saturday. I'm talking about accountability for a man clearly that has been struggling. His cognitive abilities have been limited,
Yep.
and they have covered that up. And that's accountability. And
Mm-hmm.
this goes to the press. This goes to every person that have lied to our faces from that administration to
Mm-hmm.
cover up his cognitive decline. And that's the accountability I'm speaking of. It's
Yep.
not just Saturday. That speaks for itself. And like you said, that'll play out over time. I'm talking about what happened in the days leading up to that.
Yep.
Not that they're directly related, but
Unless I think it also it bodes well of us to know we're not naive. We're not saying
right.
that politicians aren't all a little funky. That
Yeah.
politics people don't manipulate things and massage
Yeah.
things and
Both sides equally.
yeah,
I
yeah. So
agree. Yeah.
it's not that. But in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like the depth and breadth of this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we're not naive, but
Yeah.
this is something unique. This is a unique set of circumstances, in
Mhm.
my opinion.
How
So
about the media, right? That's another one that clearly we're covering for this guy in
mhm.
terms of his ability. And I'm let me be very specific. I listened, obviously everybody had not everybody, but most people have listened to the debate. So that's when he clearly showed who he is.
Hmm.
And then look at the following interviews. They don't get that much better. And the one with
No,
Lester Holt on
they don't get
Sunday,
better at all.
they
Yeah.
they don't, but they continue to cover up for him
Well,
as
and
if there's
yeah,
nothing wrong. Like, don't believe your lying eyes. And
yeah.
that's what I'm talking about, self accountability. And then yeah, then we said we got to move on to the wheel to other parts of our.
Well, I think it's, I think what you're talking about is the mental health of the president of the United States. So,
Well,
you
talk about
know,
my mental health and others that is asked to believe this complete lies, right?
well, here's the interesting part in the spirit of accountability
Yeah,
from my viewpoint on this is you have these media people now, and some of the Democrats, there's a group of them that have basically said, okay, we can't deny this anymore. This is way
yeah,
too obvious. And so, but
yeah.
but they're not being held accountable for what they did. They're not being held accountable.
They're
You
not
can't
even
just
being self accountable by
no.
acknowledging, hey, I got this one wrong.
I got this one wrong. Yeah, I got this
Yeah,
one wrong. I haven't heard anybody say that. So,
not a single person in the media, not even a politician that have been lying outright for him. They know when they went into a room and had a conversation with him, he was that way. But yet
yep.
they would walk out that door and just bullface lie to us that he's perfectly fine. And
Well, and
those are AI generated
yeah, deep fakes.
deep fakes. Right?
I love that one. I
Yeah.
love, and this is what's the interest. Another interesting viewpoint I have is that the group of Democrats on people on the left or people that hate Trump or whatever that have now been convinced or flushed out. Now they're going to rat out the other side. That's going to
Yeah.
start happening, right?
Oh,
Because
the
that's
rats are already running out
yeah,
of the
they're running all over the place.
out of the building.
You
They
know,
are.
and just to bring in that second event because it makes sense to me now to bring it in, and we'll come stay on the wheel for sure. But JD Vance, the vice presidential selection,
That's an
who
event. Yep.
you and I didn't really know much about, admittedly.
Yeah.
And what I told you is, and I'll say this to anybody listening if they're interested in finding out more about who this guy is there's a 11-minute interview with Megyn Kelly that looks like it took place when he released his book Hillbilly Elegy, which was a bestseller back then years ago. And I think his wife was just pregnant with their first kid, so I think it was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned everything about his upbringing. His family is this guy has overcome
Yeah.
hardship like no one else I've ever seen before. He's humble, he's articulate, he's intelligent, he seems authentic. And wait till he gets into the muck at DC and see how he responds to that piece of shit. But it's like, can Washington make this guy into a bad guy? I suppose it's possible, but right now I really like the look and feel of this guy. I got to tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, because I'm a registered independent. I'm not a Trumper by any means.
Yep.
I've also heard it referred to as a Trump humper. Clearly not a Trump humper, but I think we both had let's just say a time of reflection in a positive way that he represents the best of America,
Yeah.
and particularly his background coming from absolutely nothing, right? And the fact that he was chosen not because of his skin color, but because of what he has accomplished, what he stands for, what he's been through. I was very, very pleased that he made the choice to select him as his vice president and running mate. And then again, it's just the best of what America has on all levels, right? Somebody came from absolutely nothing with no mother or father, from what I understand.
Yeah, his mother was an addict who's clean now, but he quote unquote keeps his distance from her. And
Yeah,
his father disappeared when I don't think he ever knew his father, but he was raised in poverty with nothing and
yeah,
surrounded by, most of the people that he grew up with are in jail or dead,
yeah.
and
Then he serves his country,
yep.
and then takes advantage of I'm sure there's many different programs for military to get a college degree. He does that, and then he moves on. And then again, the fact that not just that he gets his college degree, he goes on and gets a law degree, right? From
Yale Law School. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yale Law
after that.
School. He
But
was
they,
he was at Yale Law School with Vivek Ramaswamy, and you should hear Vivek Ramaswamy
yeah,
talk about this guy.
yeah, that's
You
pretty
know,
cool. Another great American story, right? As far
yeah,
as
yeah,
an immigrant.
yeah.
And then and another part I like is that we have somebody that understands business, that understands how the world really works in terms of our economy and all those different things. So, but living here in California for 10 years, understanding Silicon Valley, he understands code, he understands technology, and he's not even 40 years old yet. You know,
Yeah, he's
I was
39.
inspired by that.
Yeah. Well,
This is the best we have.
yeah, he's I mean, again, as we discover more about him, anything's possible. It seems to me the signals and the signs and the that I'm getting from him and from everyone around him are overwhelmingly positive. How about this kind of event attached to one of these events? I'm sure it was spurned on by the events on Saturday and maybe even the selection of JD Vance. Elon Musk and company are dropping $48 million a
Ooh,
month
that's a
into their
big deal.
campaign.
That's a lot of money.
That's a
Yeah,
big deal. That's a
yeah,
big deal.
yeah,
So I mean, I don't think Elon Musk is a political animal at all, but
yeah,
more than anything, because of his genius, he's a pragmatist.
yeah,
Things need to make sense to him. That's all I am. I don't go around calling myself a Republican. I mean, I'm going to vote for the Republican candidate, and the possibility might exist in future elections that I might pick a Democrat, but I'm not driven by that. I'm driven by policy. And
yeah.
so,
I'll speak to that for a second. I got together with my brother and my sisters. This just a few days ago, and I think my brother did a pretty good job of, because of course my mom's a despises Trump, right? Which a lot of women do, if you haven't noticed, right? I don't know what the deal is, but of course my sisters don't, and my mother can't stand the guy. But my brother's like, hey, stop hating on the guy and start voting for the party and what they represent, and then just spell that out. What are the differences, right? And I think that's a great way to look at it. You may not care for the guy, but you have to make a vote what you feel is better for your country, for your family over time. And
mhm.
when you break it down like that, all of a sudden you're checking a lot more boxes on the Trump side than you are on the Biden side, and the rest, it speaks
Yeah,
for itself. So
yeah. No, I think I'm astounded when I see people that are clearly taking a position based on the man's personality.
yeah,
Like who gives a shit about his personality? Do I wish he toned it down more?
yeah,
Yeah. Do
yeah,
I wish he didn't say as much stupid shit? Yeah. Do I wish he stopped exaggerating things? Yeah. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, if he's going to close up the border, if he's going to fortify our military, if he's going to get the economy back and get the prices to go down, if he's going to
Yeah.
make us self-sufficient with regard to our energy, I mean, check, 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 check,
And then give us something that the other side hasn't done in decades, and that is fresh new talent. That is the best that America has to offer that can bring us
Oh
into the
yeah.
future. I just was
Yeah.
so inspired by a young, bright, articulate statesman. We
Yeah.
haven't had one in a while. And
No,
and again,
listen.
back to being almost angry that why didn't we bring in anybody young like that before? And so you got to hand it to Trump for picking that one, because he was accused of, no, he wouldn't pick somebody that would show him up. I
Yeah.
think he took one for the team on that one for
Well,
the
I don't know. It's crazy to think that how the big decisions that Donald Trump had to make after somebody tried to take his head off with a bullet, like he's
yeah,
still in the game, man. I think he was up and out of the hospital within hours and making phone calls,
yeah,
and then you see all this other, like now they gave Robert Kennedy Jr. a security detail. How hypocritical is that? There's nothing accountable about that at all. That guy's his uncle and his father were both assassinated.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
He knows a little bit about
and this
assassination.
guy's walking around with opinions a lot of people don't like. Like he's not in danger. He's already had credible death threats. I mean, you don't react to Trump getting shot by giving Kennedy a Secret Service detail. He should have had a Secret Service detail as soon as he announced he was running, because
Yeah.
that's tradition, right?
All
The
right, I agree. Again, let's move from the worldview to the other parts. We're talking about events. So, Mark, share with me and again, but just break it down into your life, right? There's just for a quick reference, something happened when you were 5, something happened when you were 10, 15, 20. What were those events you think shaped your life? Like this event's going to shape uh, the America, really.
Yeah, no, I don't know that I can specifically do the 5, 10, 15, but generally speaking, I first was made aware by my father and my reflection at about 6 from a little league experience that I was a leader, that I was going to be pretty much the captain of
but there
everything
had to
that
be an event, right? Again, I appreciate the
I watched.
positive.
The event was my father said to me one day, "You watch. You've got one of my t-shirts on, so you're wearing your dad's white t-shirt to practice, and you watch what happens tomorrow." And the next day, everyone else on the team had their dad's white t-shirt on, and I went, "Huh." And my father would use the opportunity to say, "Do you know why that is?" And I'm like, "Not really. I'm fucking 6, you know."
Yeah, but he interesting, but he pointed it out.
Yeah, he was right. I mean, it turned out to be I was the captain of everything. I always led conversations.
Yeah,
I own my
but
own
that was an
company. And
event, right?
it was a seminal event, and I'll never forget it. Next one's probably let's say 17 or 18. I had applied to go to Notre Dame by suggestion. I didn't want to go to an Ivy League school because I grew up around them and I didn't care for them. Their
Yeah.
arrogance and they're full of themselves. I wanted to go somewhere else. So I applied to Notre Dame, knowing nothing about the school. I thought it was a football school, but it was my father's attraction to it was a Catholic school. I was teaching kids on the soccer field summer camp, and I was on a field and I looked up and my father's car pulled up to the side road, and I'm like, this is one of those deals where you're like, the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, who died, right? And I walked over really worried about the news he was bringing, because he never came down to see me. He just waited for me to get home for my camp counselor work. And as I walked towards him, he was emotional. I'm like, fuck. And he looks at me and he goes, "You got in." I go, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You just got accepted to Notre Dame."
Wow.
And he started crying.
That's an
I've
event.
I've
Yeah.
seen him cry. I've seen him cry twice in my life.
Wow.
Once
That's cool.
once was when his father died, and at 3 times actually. Once was when his father died. The other time was this moment, and the next time was when I brought him to Notre Dame and endowed a scholarship in his name, and he didn't know what I was doing. And we went up to the president's office at Notre Dame and gave him this scholarship, and he came unhinged. It was spiritual, it was fatherly, it was loving, it was crazy. Those are 3 of them. Obviously having my children, getting married, getting divorced.
Yeah.
There's all of them. Those are all
Yeah.
events for sure.
Yeah, those are good ones.
How about you?
I'll do kind of the same. I'll do the 5, 10, 15, 20. But I recently started thinking this. I just remember I was, like you said, just like your dad, I was doing some yard work or something, and I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was like, "Dad, I can't do this." And he's like, and he didn't say a lot of words, but he almost like got really angry, and he wasn't that type of a person, right? He wasn't an aggressive person. He said, I never ever want to hear you use the word can't. You can do anything. I never ever want to hear you. God, I'm gonna get emotional trying to say it, right? But he just got all over me about saying I can't do something. So at the time you don't realize, because like you said, you're 5 or 6 years old. You're like, what is this guy talking about? But it does program your mind at an early age of how you're going to react to things, right?
Wonderful.
So that's kind of cool. It sounds like we have a similar story in terms of our fathers, right? I think, yeah, clearly, 10 years, my 10-year-old teacher, asking me to read in front of the classroom when I didn't realize I didn't know how to read. I couldn't read. I was dyslexic. That was pretty humiliating. And the events that followed was probably, no question, something that shaped me. It not only did it humble me, but I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, and a lot of other things came from that, because I was laughed at by the whole class because I'm sitting there trying to read out loud, and I just simply
Horrible.
couldn't do it. Right. But
Horrible.
yeah, but hey, that's life. Again, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. And eventually I had to be self-accountable. I had to figure it out. Yeah, the next one, clearly playing varsity football as a sophomore, starting off as third string and then becoming the the starter, later on in the year, that had a huge impact, especially,
Hmm.
I mean, fast forward, and it was in the locker room, right? An NFL head coach, a Rose Bowl MVP, and my other good friend, which was a Calls World Series MVP, and then a Major League Baseball manager. So that being around those guys and learning how to compete, that was a huge impact on.
Yeah.
That was an event
Yeah.
that changed my life. And then yeah, back to that, 5 years later, they're both the best, basically, you could say, in the country at their skills. And then I was told by my another I forgot about, I never think about this, but it was another teacher conversation when I was working, making cabinets during the day, and then at night trying to go to night school to get some kind of education. And that's when my uh, junior college English teacher told me not to come back to class uh, because we had to take some tests, and I had a third grade reading and writing level. So she just said, like, don't even bother coming back. So
Yeah.
that was a hard day. And I remember saying, this is not good. I got to figure this out. And, obviously it worked out fine. It was, I self-educated myself, but those are four events that absolutely can
Well, if
change.
yeah, if I may, dude, I think that now knowing you as well as I do for many years now, what I'm hearing is exactly what you inferred earlier, which is it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. And what I hear there and I see there clearly from your dad telling you, I never want you to use the word, I never want to hear you use the word can't, to the embarrassment in the classroom, which you have claimed is part of what led to your anger and your
Oh
competitive
yeah.
nature and the fights that you used to get in and all
Yeah.
that.
And
And
two
then,
national championships and
yeah,
5 league championships. And
yeah. I mean, what those events, what those hardships
Mhm.
caused was they built resilience in you and
Yeah.
fortitude and the clarity around the concept of showing up
Mhm.
every day,
Yeah.
and being prepared. I mean, those are great lessons. I mean, those any one of those instances could have knocked the wind out of you for the rest of your life. But
Yeah. But
come on,
it's a good, this is why what we're talking about is it's also self accountability, right?
totally, totally, totally.
It,
I think
and
I think self accountability. You said it earlier. I can't remember if we were recording it or not. It leads to joy and fulfillment. And if
Mhm.
you're always
Interesting.
looking, if you're always looking to blame
Mhm.
other people or other things, and the
Mhm.
events that we just cited, people are running around looking to blame everybody and everything they
Mhm.
possibly can. And very few people are standing up saying, no, this is my role in this. This is my
Mhm.
responsibility for this. And I dropped the ball on this one, or I got this one
Mhm.
wrong. Why don't people understand how
Yeah.
transparently wonderful that makes you look?
Yeah.
I mean,
And the word that you use, authentic, too.
the authenticity of it is
Yeah.
astounding. And to like, people make mistakes. We give people second chances all the time in America, right?
Yeah.
It's people write stories about them. We make movies about that shit.
Right. It's
Like,
part of who we are as Americans, is to
yes,
have the second chance, that anything is possible for those who want to work. But
that's
you've
right.
got to work. You got to show up and take responsibility. And there's no guarantees it's going to work out the way you want.
Well,
Um,
it's also this concept of life as a meritocracy, which I'm a
mhm.
firm believer in, and I know that you are as well. What the other thing that's falling apart right before our eyes, and it's
Mhm.
been the microscope is on it now at the head of the Secret Service, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. She was a DEI hire, and I started talking about how DEI was bullshit like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I wrote about it. I wrote about it,
Yeah.
and it's falling apart because it's stupid. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't put some. And now, what had to happen, Jim, if you think about it,
Yeah.
the ex-president of the United States needed to almost die
Mhm.
to get some of this stuff. We're putting the
Yeah.
microscope on top of some of this stuff now. And the
Mhm.
guy he picks for VP, what little I do know about him, I'm very, very positively inclined about. And the biggest thing I like about him is he seems to be completely self-accountable,
Yeah.
self-responsible,
Yeah. You
So
said something, Mark, that I've seen that is not good for our younger generation, for anybody, and that this whole victimhood, that everybody's a victim.
yeah.
Of course, we I mean, everybody has their challenges, but to be told to give your power to somebody else, that's what victims do, right?
Hmm.
They surrender their power and their ability to be self-accountable of their future because they've given it away. And it seems like this particular administration has done a wonderful job of making everybody a victim.
Hmm.
And they did it for political reasons. That's why I despise them so much.
Well, it's a victim. If you want to make people victims, then you're doing that for a reason, and the reason, in
That's
my
right.
estimation, is control and
That's right.
power. I mean, COVID was a control play
Huh.
in my estimation, and
Oh,
you can see it. You can see it in what people. There's still individual people walking outside with masks on. What the
yeah.
fuck, you know?
Oh,
So I think here's what I say towards the end of looking to wrap it up here in the next few minutes is he gets a bullet whizzed past. I don't know how many people would drop to the ground instinctively like that, by the way, that aren't military. That was a
yeah.
pretty badass move, dropping to the ground. Most people would run, right?
Yeah.
And so he did protocol. In the face of danger,
Yeah.
and then he gets up with blood on his face, completely disheveled, and puts his fist in the air like that. If that doesn't make the world go, I got a choice between that guy and that guy, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
no-brainer, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's also it supports the notion of fortitude. It
Yeah.
doesn't support victimhood. So this guy took a
Yeah.
shot at me and he fucking missed, right? I'm not going to lie down and whine. I'm going to get back up, which is
Yeah.
the whole thing was just an example of personal accountability and fortitude and not non-victimhood. And I think do you remember the first time I said to you the ship is turning? I think it was probably 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and it's turning a little faster right now in my estimation. It'll be interesting to see where these things go and who is held accountable and who comes out and says, I got this one wrong, and
Yeah.
if somebody in a position of power in the media or politics came out and said, I got this one wrong, I think they'd be propped up. I don't
Yeah.
think they'd be knocked down. I think it's these wimps that are running around looking at they're still calling him a racist. They're still calling him a Nazi. It's like, come
Yeah.
on. Well, what
Yeah.
what needs to take place? But
Yeah. Now,
anyway,
what a great way to wrap it up. And again, if you look at a human that takes no accountability, it would be Joe Biden. That is an individual that I never takes accountability for anything. There's
yeah.
always an excuse. There's always somebody else. So yeah, I think
There's
that was a
there's
great way.
there's nothing authentic about him, right?
No,
There's nothing authentic about him. And
that's-
people that struggle with the phrase I don't know, I don't trust them, you know.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, we got a little political today, but it was fun because I mean,
yeah,
we're entrenched in politics in this world right now. So yeah, I
yeah,
think the end note is that look around and see what you might be able to take more personal responsibility for today. It'll make you a better person. It'll make you
yeah,
more fulfilled and bring more joy into your life.
yeah. Self accountability. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, Mark. Until next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.